I'm just going to walk you through this outline design for a half allotment plot at Beer Alston. Basically we've got is the grid here is 2 centimetres represents 1 metre, and it's a half an allotment plot, so it's 18 metres by 9 metres. Prevailing wind is coming from the west, southwest, and that's at the top of the plot, top of the picture, and the orientation to the left is facing southeast. So I've got all my elements waiting, and I'm just going to talk you through the various layers and decisions that I've made putting this plan together. So what's on the plot at the moment? So at the moment there is a shed which is in pretty poor condition, but I think is recoverable and reusable, and yeah, can be really form the focus of Zone 0. So we've got a shed. It'd be really good to have some outdoor sitting space by that shed, so I can do stuff when it's either too hot or it's a little bit miserly, which tends to be the weather up there quite frequently. Has very little shade, and it's quite exposed. So I'm going to pop in a veranda, and that's of corrugated iron. Ridge is going horizontally, so we can actually grow some plants within that to have a living roof structure. And then I thought, well, why not just extend that and have a living roof, sedum roof on the shed itself? That's really good for pollinators and insects, and also gives some sort of thermal mass to the shed, keeping it better insulated in the winter and cooler in the summer. Other elements I'd quite like to have, of course, is a water collection point. So I'm going to pop a couple of IBC tanks in that side and one on that side too. I'm going for an overcapacity at this stage. There's no water on site, and also I think the majority of the water is going to be critical in the establishment phase. So if I do get too much water, I can always turn those tanks around at a later stage and have the taps towards the access path, so I can share that water with other allotment holders. In addition to that, I'd really like a place just to have almost like a field kitchen, so somewhere with a rocket stove to boil some water for a drink, and also a sort of sink unit, washing up unit, so I can wash vegetables and fruit. So I'm going to pop that there and just pop a roof over it as well. So again, that's another area where we can collect water from and keep it on site. On the other side, I'm trying to, because it's such a small plot, I'm trying to maximise vertical space. So I think I'm just putting a wooden pergola in there and actually growing some beans and peas over it. So what I'm creating is a lot of microclimates around that shed, which allows me to do a lot of different things, and also maximise those vertical growing spaces. Also really good spaces for putting bird boxes and sheltered spots for wildlife. In addition, with the tanks, I'd quite like to grow some plants over the cages, just again to maximise the vertical space. So some thornless blackberries scrambling up the cage on the shaded side, and some nasturtiums growing up on the sunnier side. So they're great for food, and also as part of the integrated pest management. So that's a shed, that's getting there. The other thing that I've got on the allotment is an apple tree. Don't know what variety it is. I'm really keen to get some Tamar Valley varieties. So a case of keeping an eye on that one, see what it yields, and possibly at a later date use it for one of those family trees where I can graft different varieties onto it. But at the moment, it's good to have a tree there. It's started to get established, so it gives you a little bit of height. Moving on from the shed, I'm looking at the sort of shady side of the plot and that overflow from the water butt, and thinking of putting in a pond, lots of edge features, and also looking at bog plants and edibles that can be incorporated within the pond. Also got an area there of shallow stone, so it's good for bees and things, so they've got a nice shallow space to drink. Need to give that some thought, because there are some local restrictions on the allotments about ponds, but at the moment I'd like to get that feature in there. Also thinking about that sort of utilising that space and extending the soft fruit theme is to pop some raspberries in. So it's good for cover, and also it's a nice, it's increasing the diversity of fruit crops. Log pile I'm going to pop in there, because again that's really good habitat, and it's also getting carbon into the system, and utilising logs that probably be taken away from the plot or used elsewhere. Carrying on with that theme, I'd like to get some sort of border definition down the right hand side. Looking to do that with a dead hedge, because there's always a lot of accumulated tree prunings on the allotment, often go onto a bonfire, so it'd be really good to have a space where you could utilise some of those. It's good for habitat, and also to start getting those sort of mycorrhizal fungi working in the system. But it's also good scrambling space, so I'm thinking of utilising that as well to grow some squashes. Again, just increasing that diversity and crop yield. And finally, in this corner, because it's got a bit of a woody theme, I'd like to get some mushroom logs in. So put that there. That's my fungi layer of the forest garden. But also to pop in some hazel, which is a multifunctional plant. It will give nuts, it'll give shade to those mushrooms, and also pea sticks and bean sticks to use throughout the plot. Moving up along that side, pop in some compost bins, made to pallet, so again reused. It's a system that's worked well for me in the location in the past on a double bin, but I think 3 bins is better. It just gives you a little bit more flexibility, and also that final bin as it's maturing is a good place just to get another catch crop of perhaps pumpkins or another squash in, so just popping that there. Looking at the sort of chop and drop and material to activate compost, you can just pop in some comfrey right close by, so as you're building up those layers in the lasagna fashion, that's there just to hand to add for some extra nutrients. Top corner here, I was going to pop in some nitrogen fixers, and also, again, because it's close to the compost heap, a bed of nettles, which is great because, again, it provides chop and drop material. It's great for wildlife. It provides food and also fibre, and I'm keen to have a try at making some nettle string so I can use throughout the allotment. But I'm also going to pop in sea buckthorn, nitrogen fixer, and very good berries, and also an autumn olive. So that's in that corner, just get that little bit of a break up on that side of the plot. Moving over to the other side, quite keen to maximise this boundary with fruit production. So an espalier system going in there. Again, getting as many fruits and soft fruits as I can get in there. Pears, apples, but also to get things like Japanese wineberry and thornless blackberries scrambling up through that system as well. And to protect the plot from the prevailing winds, I was looking at trialling a wriggly hedge. So again, getting the edge effect in a very similar way to the pond, just helping to break up that wind as it comes through. The other areas in between are soft fruit bushes and some kind of pollinators and things on the plot side. Keen to get in some pollinators, nice bed of pollinators, of companion plants, so just alongside that hedge, because the thing that's going to pop in there is a couple of keyhole beds. Now it's a small plot and they're a tight fit, so there may need to be some adjustments, but I think they'd be really good to have in the plot. Both of them have got the wormeries, built-in wormeries. Looking to have one for annuals and one for perennials. Perennials basically to really cover the hungry gap, but also to give that continual ground cover. So yeah, and let's pop in some more trees. So looking to have a damson. There's a lot of damsons and bullums and bulluses in the hedgerows around here, so that's a really nice tree to have in. Lovely fruit. And I'm going to pop a pear tree in again, just to give a little bit of shade around that shed area, offer a suitable rootstock so it doesn't get too large. But you know, those internal spaces are also pathways, so it's not actually going to block anything in that area. And also a Tamar Valley apple cherry tree, which is so distinctive of this area. So pop that there. And with each of those fruit trees, I'm going to pop in some comfrey for chop and drop and mulch. So keep them well fertilised and retain water for them. And again, you know, in that area, you can also utilise a chop and drop on those vegetable beds. Also, I'm going to pop a comfrey next to the compost bin, because again, really good to get some of that material into the compost. Two more features I'd like to incorporate. Really keen to have a communal area so we can actually discuss, people can get together and discuss some of these principles and how they might apply them into their plot. So I'm going to pop in a seating area made of logs with a table. Good community space, good outdoor community space. Surrounded by an area of the grass with herb-rich grass and red clover and other nitrogen fixes. And that's going to be the ground level across the plot. Anywhere that's not planted specifically with one of these elements will be covered with a species-rich grass, really just as a living mulch and really to get those nutrient systems going. On top of that community seating area, I'm going to pop a large wooden gazebo, which is going to be a really good place for vertical growing. So I'm going to grow lots of climbers. Things like kiwi fruit, grapes, peas, beans. Yeah, and you know, perhaps the combination of perennials and annuals also gives really good shade for people sitting in that area. And in addition to that, I'd quite like to get a herb spiral in, and I know that space is getting quite tight. It's a good place for people to sit and watch what's going on in the herb spiral. Diversity of herbs. Within the structure, I'd like to incorporate some sort of insect nesting structures, like bricks with holes in and bunches of sticks. So it just again makes it a multifunctional space. And again, it's great to observe that from that seating area and have discussions about the roles of insects and bees and pollinators. So yeah, so to get my root layer in, I'm probably going to go for some Jerusalem artichokes, which I know grow amazingly on this site because I have them on my other plot. Probably going to pop them there. My only issue with them is they spread. So I've put them in a sort of raised bed at this stage, but they are very good for pollinators. They're getting that root level into the food forest, which I'd then like to spread throughout as the rest of the area gets established and gets more stable. Another area that'd be quite nice around that community area, and again something for the community to get involved in building, is the little bee hotel. So again, adding habitat. And this one I quite like to put almost like a little living roof on it with thyme bushes and things. So it's not just used for hibernation and nesting, it's used for feeding too. So that's basically the main plan. It's very much a system of spirals and I get the flow is from the sort of circles. That's where the pattern is. Trying to get some edge effect in. So this is, you know, this isn't a finished plan. It's one of these where get some of the elements in, see if they work. There's opportunities to add other things, change things as the system grows and develops. But I think what I'm looking forward to is sitting on the veranda, looking out and observing the plot with my favourite mint tea, which I've grown in pots because it's a little bit invasive, but we sat under the veranda with my rocket stove boiled cup of tea and just really enjoying the space.